West Point, a little town with a huge history. Hey guys, we're out and about today. The sun's shining. It's still a little cool, but we're able to be out and about. We decided to come back to West Point, Kentucky to do the walking tour. So we're going to take you around, I think there's 18 different stops, and it's a very historic little town, so let's get started. When you first arrive, stop by the History Museum and pick up a walking tour brochure. This will give you a map and all the stops along the way. This is approximately a 1-mile walking tour along the historic district. Our first stop on the walking tour of West Point is the Pioneer Cemetery. It's located at Mulberry and 2nd, and it's right on Dixie Highway. It's a very busy highway here. And James Young and some of his family are buried here. These are some of the early settlers of West Point are buried right here in this cemetery. Okay, this is number 2. This is the James Young House, built in 1795. It's on Elm Street. And James Young built this as the first house in West Point, high on a bluff above the river. And you can see the Salt River right down here. And it's very high now because it's almost in flood stage. It's hard to believe this house has been here since 1795. It's incredible. The first families came in 1788 and named this town West Point, Virginia, because it was the westernmost point of Virginia. Kentucky became a state 4 years later. So this is stop number 3 on the walking tour, and it is the James Young Inn, which was also built in 1795. Many famous people stayed here, including John James Audubon in 1813, James Buchanan in 1814, Jenny Lind in 1851, and Wendell Willkie in 1918, among many other famous people. This whole road down here was a stagecoach trail or road that they used. And so this was an inn that people stayed in when they traveled on that stagecoach trail through here. Very interesting history in this town. Stop number 4 is the Sears and Roebuck house. Back years ago, you could order a house through Sears and Roebuck, and it would come in pieces and they would put it together. This was built around 1900s, and Jemima Mills ordered this as a kit, and it was sent by railroad, and we saw how close the railroad tracks is. It was called a Midwestern 3I model. The name 3I stands for Indiana, Iowa, and Illinois, where this model of home was popular. All of these homes that we're seeing on this tour are privately owned, so we can't really necessarily go see inside, but it's very interesting to see. Okay, this house behind me, the tour guide told us a few weeks ago when we were here, it used to be a shanty boat. People used to live on shanty boats on the river, and this was a shanty boat at one time. They pulled it up onto the shore, they put a foundation on it, and they just kept building on, and this is what it is today. So it had an interesting history, and even though it's not on the tour, I wanted to let you know about it. This gray house here is called the Ditto House, and it was built in 1840. The Ditto family built flatboats in the early pioneer days, and this house was used as an inn or a tavern and operated by various owners over the years. So it's very old as well. Okay, number 6 on the walking tour is the John Shields house, which is right behind me. And he was a blacksmith, and this was built in 1803 during the Lewis and Clark expedition to the Pacific Ocean. So it has quite a history. This is the site of the first log cabin built here in 1776, one of the first settlements. This is such an interesting place. We're right here where the Lewis and Clark expedition to the Pacific Ocean took place. They had 28 men, an Indian girl, and a dog. And the 3 of them were from right here in West Point. How cool is that? Right here used to stand a salt warehouse. That's where the Salt River got its name. And it was right here in 1796. This old building was probably my favorite. Number 7 on the walking tour is the Civil War Hospital. It's also the Prewitt House. The house was taken over during the Civil War and used as a hospital. Dr. Prewitt purchased it after the World War I and used it as a house and his medical office. Can you imagine what all took place here? I wonder if the people who live here realize the history that has taken place right here. Okay, this is stop number 8. This was used as Sherman's headquarters in the Civil War. There was someone named Mabel Lake who lived here for 100 years, but this building was used as General Sherman's headquarters during the Civil War. Stop number 9 on the walking tour is the gray building behind me. It's 408 Elm Street, and this was Shields' store. The store was downstairs and the owner lived upstairs. The back was added on later. Stop number 10 is the K&I Bank building, Kentucky and Indiana Bank. It was in a bank from 1901 to 1912, and it was a telephone exchange from 1921 to 1940, and it's currently an apartment building. The building behind me is stop number 11 on the walking tour, and that is the West Point Theater. Back in the 1900s, it was also used as a meeting place, a meeting hall, and it also had a movie theater. So now it serves as an apartment building. There was no sign that we could find, but this is the correct address. Number 12 on the walking tour is the Dixie Inn, and this is on Main Street. The bottom floor was a restaurant, and the second floor has been used as a high school gym from 1915 to 1920, a movie theater, and a bowling alley. It was kind of jack of all trades. Now it's an apartment building. Number 13 on the walking tour is the West Point Hotel. Back in the early 1900s, train passengers stayed here, and it was used as a hotel and a restaurant. It's still used as a restaurant today. Stop number 14 on the walking tour is Dr. Roberts' home and office. He was the town doctor and also served the surrounding area. He was also a Camp Knox surgeon and Illinois Central Railroad surgeon. So this was quite an important person who lived in this house back here. And as we said earlier, all these are privately owned now. This is stop 15 on the walking tour. It is Crowley's store, which was built in 1899. It was a grocery and dry goods store for many years, and it was used as an antique and hardware store in the 1970s and 80s, then a pizza restaurant in the 90s, and it's back to an antique store today. This is stop number 16 on the walking tour, and it's the West Point Bank. The bank was operated by two sisters from the 1940s until about 2000. It's still used as a bank today. Stop number 17 is the Methodist Church. There are 14 stained glass windows which were donated by church members and groups. And the townspeople built this church for less than $10,000. It was built in 1903. And the last and final stop of this walking tour of West Point is here at the 38th parallel sign. It's the parallel that circles the earth that divides North and South Korea and runs right through West Point. How interesting is that? Thanks for coming on this walking tour with us. We had a great time and it was a good day to get out of the house. If you love history and you love historic buildings, we highly recommend the West Point walking tour. We couldn't go inside the train car, but I was able to put the camera up to the window and take some pictures. If you would like to see more videos of West Point, click the playlist that just popped up on your screen.